So Dr. Mike... Wait, that's not right. Let me just redo that. So Mr. Mike has found himself standing in the center of controversy these last 2 weeks as a law student by the name of Solomon Nelson dropped an absolute nuke of a video exposing Mike Israetel for being a fraud. You see, as many of you know, Mike has a PhD in exercise science, as he likes to mention this any opportunity he gets.
Hey guys, Dr. Mike here. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here. Dr. Mike here. Dr. Mike here.
However, Solomon combed through his entire PhD dissertation and found it to be riddled with mistakes, to the point that he claims that any university worth their salt would have denied Mike his PhD. It was that bad. And since then, Mike has lied multiple times about the dissertation supposedly being an early draft, when it wasn't, and may have even gone as far as committing actual fraud. But this video won't just be a recap of the drama. You see, before Solomon dropped his video, I was working on my own video concerning Mike Israetel. About a month ago, I stumbled across a video on Mike's second channel, where in typical Mike fashion, he claims authority using his completely unrelated PhD to spew misinformation on a topic he actually knows nothing about. However, this time, it wasn't something harmless and silly like claiming ChatGPT is God. You've got a whole ass wife, bro. How about you talk to her? Getting back to topic though, this time, Mike decided to sit in front of his camera and advocate for eugenics and race realism, both also known as scientific racism. You see, Mike Israetel claims that certain races are inherently superior to others.
If you ask me any more questions about that, I won't say anything because I'm not getting canceled over that shit. Because in our current political climate, if I fill in the blanks of what I mean, your boy's out. Fuck that. I'm not ready to, shut down the YouTube yet.
And only a week after Solomon uploaded his video, 2 days ago at the point of me recording this, Mike Israetel has decided to quietly go and delete this video from his second channel, hoping nobody would notice. Luckily for me though, one of you guys actually downloaded the video in case he ever decided to take it down. And the top comment on this now deleted video should truly say it all. This really would have gone hard in 1930s Germany. Ain't that funny, Mike? Mike? Mike, what are you doing? Mike, no. Mike, please, for the love of ChatGPT, stop. Thank God. Mike, no! I'm kidding. That's a joke. This fucking video is gonna get demonetized. Alright, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's get into it. So some of you who aren't caught up with the drama may be wondering, what's Mike Israetel's PhD thesis even about? Well, in his magnum opus, his pièce de résistance, the very thesis that made him the accredited doctor of exercise science, that he likes to remind people of every single opportunity he gets, Mike basically states that stronger people tend to be stronger, and athletic people tend to be able to run faster and jump higher. I mean, you'd think that with the way Mike likes to remind people of his superior intelligence,
And whatever it is you think you're good at in your life, it'd probably take about a year and become an authority in the field in which you think you're good. I'm both on a raw IQ scale smarter than almost every coach, maybe every coach.
That his thesis would actually discover something new, or at the very least seek to explain a complicated concept. But no, as Solomon put it,
in short, Mike's thesis consolidates the widely held view in sports science that it's a good idea for aspiring athletes to become leaner, stronger, and more muscular.
But okay, to play devil's advocate, even though these concepts are very intuitive and logical to anyone over the age of 4, we still need scientific research into why these concepts are true. Maybe Mike actually presents some novel research to back up these rather intuitive beliefs. Maybe because these beliefs are so intuitive, there's a surprising lack of data to back them up, and Mike fills that gap with his PhD dissertation. Sounds pretty valid to me. Let's take a look.
Mike's thesis falls short of fulfilling one of the most fundamental requirements for doctoral research, a significant contribution of original knowledge. The stated goal of Mike's thesis was to explore interrelationships among fitness variables that he claimed were less clear in the existing literature. However, the core findings, that stronger athletes are more muscular and powerful, that more powerful athletes jump higher and sprint faster, and that leaner athletes perform better in these tasks, are not only unsurprising, but also extensively documented in prior research, even by 2013.
Well, okay. So there's been extensive past research done into this exact topic, and Mike gives absolutely zero new insight into any of this. And one of the most important aspects of getting your PhD, as Solomon states, is to show that you're able to contribute new knowledge to your field. But maybe, just stay with me here, maybe Mike takes all the data that has already been extensively reviewed and actually categorizes, handles, and strings it together in such a comprehensive, precise, and brilliant manner that still warrants him getting his PhD. Let's take a look.
A doctoral thesis isn't evaluated just on the originality or significance of its content, but also the clarity and accuracy with which that content is presented. Mike Israetel's thesis fails comprehensively on this front. Across the thesis, Mike presents impossible and contradictory data, inflates simple points with jargon, and allows hundreds of basic grammatical, typographical, and formatting errors to remain uncorrected. The following sections unpack these issues in detail, and by the end, you'll see that it's impossible to view Mike's work as anything but fundamentally compromised.
So what Solomon discovered when he combed through Mike's dissertation is that a lot of the data Mike presents is statistically impossible. For example, Mike's dissertation references supposed athletes with body weights under 4.6 pounds, literally smaller than a newborn child. And not just that, according to Mike's own data, some of these athletes were apparently shorter than minus 2.3 inches and younger than minus 1.6 years old. So unless Mike found a secret population of time-traveling, reverse-aging microscopic athletes, something's gotta be a little off here. And it wasn't just improper data handling. His dissertation was riddled with spelling mistakes to the point where even Greg Duchette's writing would seem Shakespearean in contrast. These mistakes would show up in numerous sections over and over again, showing that he copy and pasted massive parts over and over again without even proofreading anything. He also inconsistently rounds up numbers, such as rounding both figures of minus 8.71% and minus 7.91% both to minus 8%, which, by the way, on the topic of percentages, 70% of you that watch my last video were not subscribed, so consider hitting that subscribe button if you've enjoyed the video. Going back though, to top it all off, there's also a finding within his paper that flat out contradicts Mike's entire thesis. To go back to Solomon one last time.
To recap, Mike's thesis distorts its cited works, manufactures a research gap from those distortions, corrupts its own data, copy-pastes entire sections without revision, contains hundreds of basic grammatical, typographical, and formatting errors, scarcely justifies its methods, fails to engage critically with relevant literature, draws strong conclusions from non-significant findings without adequate caveats, and contributes little, if anything, to the theoretical development of sports science. In summary, Mike's thesis can't be said to be careful, rigorous, cohesive, or original. It fails to meet the basic standards of doctoral scholarship.
Well, that's pretty damning. Now, what succeeded this video was an entire clusterfuck of a situation. Dr. Milo Wolf, who functioned more like a dog in this situation, uploaded a video in Mike's defense where he and Mike claimed that the dissertation that Solomon reviewed was actually an earlier draft that had accidentally been uploaded to the university database. This, of course, made zero sense from the beginning, and their lie immediately started unraveling when people noticed that the dates on the supposed final draft revealed a bunch of inconsistencies, to which Mike then admitted that the supposed later draft wasn't actually a later draft, but an earlier draft to the one that Solomon critiqued, even though this earlier draft didn't have 90% of the mistakes that Solomon's draft had. And then Mike came out of the woodwork with yet another final draft that he found somewhere laying around. Just incredibly shady stuff. The gist of the situation being that Milo tried to help Mike cover his tracks, and they both failed spectacularly. Now, the reason I'm recapping this drama is because it follows the exact same pattern as the situation I'm about to cover. As Solomon has stated multiple times in his video, Mike just loves flashing his PhD as a badge of authority while spewing misinformation about topics he clearly does not understand, which we're about to see again. You see, Mike has a second channel that many don't know about, which he dubs his philosophy channel, in which he talks about many riveting topics, such as the psychology of pleasing women, should we grant AI civil rights, why robot girlfriends are about to take over, and my personal favorite, should young girls be allowed to wear makeup? How do you talk about this for 54 minutes straight? But missing from this list of brilliant videos is one that Mike quietly deleted in the midst of the whole Solomon situation, a video which was uploaded 2 years ago and had 80,000 views. Unluckily for Mike though, this video was already on my radar as I was already conceptualizing a script for this video before Solomon dropped his nuke. And luckily for me, both one of you guys and the world's leading expert on polymorphisms, the scientific snitch, had this video saved. The latter of whom actually made a really good video delving into the overwhelming scientific evidence that debunks Mike's claims. Her video is definitely worth a watch. In this now deleted video, titled "Is Intelligence Really Different Among the Races?", Mike regurgitates debunked eugenicist and race realist talking points which have been classified broadly by most scientists as scientific racism. And what makes it all the more concerning is the fact Mike claims he holds set beliefs because he's quote-unquote scientifically literate. This is a man whose entire brand centers on his doctorate degree, yet he's promoting 19th century race pseudoscience that has long been rejected by the scientific community. Let's take a look.
The GPT tells you, because you asked it, that your race or ethnic group is not the most intelligent of all of them, and maybe somewhere down the totem pole much further than you had anticipated. You may also discover at the same time that there is a totem pole of racial intelligence, and you're going to go, holy, what? You keep asking it, it's like, this is reality. You're like, oh my, do I just stop trying? What is this? Holy crap, that's a really big deal. It could really bum you out. Now, inevitably, when you guys get in the comments and ask me questions about race and intelligence, here is my view in perpetuity until politics changes in at least the United States. This is my view as applied forward for the rest of this channel's lifetime until and unless politics really changes. Here it is. Ready? I 100% acknowledge, because I'm literate, that race is truly a biological construct. It is deep. It pervades almost everything. And it has real-world differences in ability that are complicated. They are overlapping in spectra, but they are nonetheless for sure real. And they affect every single thing about your life on the margins. If you ask me any more questions about that, I won't say anything because I'm not getting canceled over that shit. Because in our current political climate, if I fill in the blanks of what I mean, your boy's out. Fuck that. I'm not ready to, shut down the YouTube yet. But so what I'm saying is, yes, race is real. Yes, race differences exist. Yes, even in every single quality that you think is too politically incorrect to talk about, which is why I'm not going to talk about it. I got plenty of other shit to say, tons of other great stuff. But as a scientifically literate, awake person, I have to say, yes, I'm aware of these things. All right? That's that.
So he's basically just admitted to believing in racial hierarchies, and yet this is somehow the censored version. These aren't his raw, unfiltered thoughts. How much worse can it get, Mike? Well, luckily for us, we don't have to wonder. You see, I had a very brief email exchange with Solomon Nelson, in which I very vaguely explained what I was going to make a video about, and in response, he asked me to review a certain podcast Mike was on. Now, the podcast is almost an hour long, and Mike says a lot of unhinged stuff, so Solomon really could have been pointing me to anything. However, one particular bit stood out to me. Let's take a look.
Like on almost every objective metric that Hitler qualified the Aryans to be superior, Jews are actually the ultimate white supremacists. Like they're the smartest, the most organized, the least criminally prone. They are the best at banking and finance and all these other things, which are multipliers of wealth in a society. You want as many Jews in your society as possible, and Ashkenazi Jews are the fucking master race.
Well. Over here at the Anabolic Stick YouTube channel, we do not condone any jokes made towards the Jewish people in any capacity, and we strongly take a stance on anything that can remotely be deemed as anti-Semitic. I strongly apologize and will strive to do better next time. Okay, all jokes aside, Jewish people aren't inherently genetically smarter than white people. White people aren't inherently genetically smarter than black people. Black people aren't inherently genetically smarter than Asian people. There's absolutely zero scientific basis to back up any claims of inherent racial or ethnic superiority, especially in the realm of intelligence. There is no gene or set of genes that have shown any race to be smarter than another, and to delve even deeper, race itself is not even a scientific concept. The consensus for decades now has been that race as a whole is a social construct and not a biological one. It is also well established that IQ is strongly influenced by environmental factors, things like nutrition, education, access to healthcare, and a bunch of other socioeconomic stressors, which explain most cross-country IQ gaps. And there are a bunch of observations that back this up. Take the Flynn effect, for example, which shows that IQ scores have risen dramatically all over the world over the past century, sometimes even by as much as 30 points. Populations don't undergo genetic revolutions in just 100 years years, which makes it clear that environmental factors and cultural changes were the driving factors behind that rise in IQ. Another example, before German reunification after the fall of the Berlin Wall, West Germans, who lived way more prosperously than their Soviet-ruled Eastern counterparts, on average had IQs around 10 points higher. West and East Germans are the same people ethnically, yet the group living under vastly worse socioeconomic conditions scored way lower on average. The same thing could be observed with Irish and Italian immigrants to America in the early 20th century. They used to score lower on IQ tests than Americans of Anglo-Saxon ancestry because they lived under worse socioeconomic conditions, and since then that gap has completely closed. Which, by the way, Irish people and Italians weren't even considered white back then. Another example of how race exists as a social construct rather than a biological one. The most famous example of this being Lewontin's study, wherein he found that 85% of genetic variation exists within any given population, whereas only 8% genetic variation exists between different races. This means that a Yoruba person from Nigeria and a Bushman from Botswana, who are both considered black, are more genetically different from each other than either of them are from a European or an East Asian person. On a genetic level, differences in skin color are no more significant than differences in eye or hair color. White, black, Asian are social groupings, layered on top of subtle, continuous genetic variation. There are no separate subspecies of humanity, and that's simply a scientific truth. Now, by no stretch of the imagination am I a genius, or an expert for that matter. Believe me, I know all of this because 2 minutes of research will tell you all of this because it's the overwhelming scientific consensus. So it truly stumps me how someone with a doctorate degree in a scientific field claims he holds pseudo-scientific beliefs because he's quote-unquote scientifically literate. Either you're trying your hardest to affirm your inherent biases and are experiencing some kind of cognitive dissonance, or you're an absolute idiot that got his PhD from a PhD mill. And now that we've all seen Solomon's dissection of Mike's PhD dissertation, I'm heavily leaning towards the latter. But let's keep it simple for Mike. Okay, we all know Mike loves ChatGPT.
I told it that I can't wait for it to be embodied in robots so I could properly give it a hug.
He references it in this very video, stating that it backs up his race realist claims.
The GPT tells you, because you asked it, that your race or ethnic group is not the most intelligent of all of them.
Well, let's ask ChatGPT ourselves. And before you get jealous, Mike, it's only a platonic relationship. Trust me, the GPT is all yours, bro. Is race tied to intelligence? Huh. Is there a racial totem pole of intelligence? No. Dr. Mike Israetel said that you said that there is one. It's possible Dr. Mike Israetel misrepresented, misquoted, or took something out of context. Will Dr. Mike Israetel be sleeping on the couch tonight? If he's trying to defend a misquote about me, I'd say there's a good chance the couch might get some action. It is interesting to me though that in the wake of Solomon's video, Mike just quietly deletes this singular video from his second channel without saying anything about it, which leads me to think he still holds these thoughts, but was simply scared of more backlash. Was scared of giving Solomon's words more validity, as this video is a prime example of why Mike Israetel is a charlatan. He couldn't take accountability surrounding the Milo Wolf situation, had a small group of people calling him out for this video, saw the writings on the wall, and quietly deleted it, hoping it wouldn't get more attention. I just don't see how this video doesn't completely take away any trust in Mike Israetel as a scientific source. Alongside that, the guy has a massive ego problem, cannot ever admit when he's wrong, and when he does get called out, and cannot ignore the problem much longer, acts all fake humble while trying his hardest to lie his way out of the situation. But okay, Mike, I see your eugenics and race realism, and I raise my phrenology. The abnormality of your Neanderthal-like skull may yet explain a lot about you after all.